What up, y'all? Back again today with a very special video. So today I want to do a quick video and I want to label this Dear ASAP Rocky. And I want to talk about what's called a nigga wake-up call. Now, if you've never heard that statement before or that term before, a nigga wake-up call, basically what this is growing up in America, maybe being black, maybe depending on your demographic, depending on your background, depending on your environment that you were raised in, you may or may not associate with the number of white people, right? Maybe if you grew up in the suburbs, maybe if you had a kind of a very diverse neighborhood, you grew up around some white people, and some people only grew up around white people to where like they're the token, quote unquote, token black guy, or they're the only black friend in that group. There's nothing wrong with that particularly, but I do want to talk to you about this quote unquote nigga wake up call and how it relates to us as a whole, and then I'm gonna go into ASAP Rocky real quick. Yeah, so if you grew up in the suburbs, you might have grown up around some white people, and if you were one of the only black people around, maybe after a while you began to feel as though you were part of the gang, you were part of the, part of the group. Nothing wrong with that. But eventually in life, what most likely will happen, maybe not with that group of friends, maybe not at that time in your life, but as you continue to associate with more and more quote unquote white people, what you may find is that you'll get a nigga wake-up call. And what is this? This is when basically something happens to where you realize that you're a nigga. And when I say that with all respect, intended, but we have to understand the dynamics of growing up, of being black in America. Let me give you my personal nigga wake-up call to give you kind of an understanding, an example of this. So I was about in 7th grade. I went to a Catholic school in 6th grade and got kicked out. My 7th grade, I went to this place called El Segundo Middle School. Now, El Segundo Middle School was like very, very, very Caucasian. And I was literally one of 5 black people in the entire school. So if you could imagine a pretty big middle school, this wasn't a small middle school. This was a decent sized middle school with maybe thousands of kids. And I was one of 5 black people there. And that came with its own unique set of circumstances. But there was one particular incident in general that I'll never forget. There was this kid, his name was Matt. And I still remember his first and last name. I'm not gonna put him on blast because it wasn't really his fault, but his name was Matt. He had blonde hair, he had blue eyes. Me and Matt were cool, we used to do like little, back in the day we used to do little fingerboards, little skateboards with your finger. We used to do a whole bunch of stuff, video games and, kid stuff, 7th grade stuff. So one day, as kids do, we wanted to spend the night over each other's house. We were talking about, hey man, we should, spend the night over each other's house on the weekend. So we came up with the idea that I would go over his house on a weekend, right? So he went home and told his mom, and then he came back and told me what she said. So I said, hey man, did you tell your mom? Did you tell your mom about me spending the night? He said, yeah, I told my mom. And I said, so what happened? And he said, well, you can't come over. I said, why? What's going on? You got something to do? He said, no, my mom said you can't come over because you're black. And I'm not joking. You might think I'm asking for sympathy. You might think I'm, just pulling your leg. You might think I'm exacerbating the situation or just trying to be a victim. But that literally happened to me. And what actually happened was his dad said no first because I'm black. And then when he asked his mom said, well, you heard what your dad said. So that was my nigga wake-up call, so to speak. My first time that I really, really understood, wow, being black, quote unquote, there's something wrong with this. That's when I felt that there was something wrong with being black. There's obviously must be something wrong if 2 logical, responsible adults are saying I can't come over their house just because I'm black. I mean, surely I was in 7th grade. They knew what school I went to. What could I have done? Was I going to steal something in the middle of the night? Was I going to murder them? I didn't know. I didn't understand at that moment. But sure enough, that was my nigga wake-up call. Now, some people get a nigga wake-up call earlier than others. Some people get it later in life. For instance, another example of a nigga wake-up call would be, some people would say, Tiger Woods. Now, there was an interview in which Tiger Woods, they asked him about his race or his ethnicity, and he basically tried to dissociate from being black by saying, well, I have Asian in me, I have Caucasian, I have other ethnicities, I'm not just black. Basically, this is where Tiger Woods tried to dissociate from being black, and he won all his titles and all these things. That's great. But then when he found himself in a controversy when he was supposedly cheating on his wife and he got arrested and all this other stuff and intoxication and all type of stuff, on his mugshot they put what? Negro. Because all that Asian and all that Caucasian and all that other stuff that you're trying to claim, no, you're a nigga. And this is why, on a side note, I want to let it be known that being black is not, under any regards, similar to being gay. Now, I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but I hear a lot of times those two things are equated as if they're somehow similar. The main difference in being black and being gay is the fact that when you come out of the womb, the doctor can see what you are, and therefore he puts it on your birth certificate. He doesn't put your sexual orientation on the birth certificate because there's no way that he can tell straight from the vagina. Straight from the vagina, though, he could tell that I'm a Negro, therefore he put Negro on my birth certificate. This is why we have to understand the mind state of black people in America, and remember, you're going to get a nigga wake-up call. And the way that this society is set up currently, you're going to get a nigga wake-up call. So, back to Matt. He was the one, or his parents were the first ones that gave me my nigga wake-up call. Now, I had a few other racist incidents since then, obviously. That was the first time where I actually had to reevaluate to myself, wow, I'm not accepted for being black. And then I had to go on my journey of figuring out why, or trying to give myself confidence, and that's a whole nother thing. But now I want to go to the reason why I made this video, or what prompted me to make this video, is A$AP Rocky. A$AP Rocky is a hip-hop artist, obviously black, actually very dark-skinned black man. And it's interesting to note that A$AP Rocky actually made a few comments prior to the incident that he's currently in which he kind of, what people would say, he dissed dark-skinned women. He basically said that dark-skinned women shouldn't wear certain colored lipsticks and shouldn't wear certain colors because it doesn't look good against their skin tone, and he got some controversy for that. Now, fast forward to currently, A$AP Rocky, it was overseas promoting some music, and he got into it with a fan. Supposedly a fan or someone who knew of him, got into an altercation with him and was allegedly following him.
We don't want no problems with these boys. They keep following us. Look at them. They keep following us.
He got into a fight, a scuffle, and got arrested. So now he's overseas, got arrested, and as we understand, when you get arrested overseas, you don't necessarily have the same rights, the same procedures that you do when you get arrested in America. So this is why when you hear people get arrested in China, or they get arrested in Russia or something like that, you know, it might be really crazy because you don't get your phone call, you don't get the same conditions as if you were in America. And now it's coming out that the living conditions that he's in are unfavorable and unsanitary, and he's not being given certain rights that he should have in America. So now, the big controversy is online that black people are dissociating from him because A$AP Rocky, when asked about racism, said this. Why? Because I'm black? So every time something happens, because I'm black, I gotta stand up? What the fuck am I now? Al Sharpton? I'm A$AP Rocky. I didn't sign up to be no political activist. I don't want to talk about no fucking Ferguson and shit because I don't live over there. I live in fucking Soho and Beverly Hills. I can't relate. I'm in the studio. I'm in these fashion studios. I'm in these bitches' drawers. I'm not doing anything outside of that. That's my life. So as you see, he clearly made it a note to distance himself from the oppression of black people in America. Because although he did have a point that he does not live in Ferguson, he does have a point that he may not be experiencing those things, the way he went about dissociating it and basically disrespectfully addressing those issues gave credence to people then saying, hey, fine, okay, you don't associate with black issues. So now that he's in an issue himself and black people are being asked to rally around him and sign petitions to free him, black people are basically saying, no, we don't want to. This is A$AP Rocky's nigga wake-up call. That's just basically what it is. It comes down to the fact that now A$AP Rocky sees, and before I even go further, I just want it to be noted that just because he got arrested overseas for fighting with someone doesn't mean it's a racist issue, just because he's black. You understand? This is another thing that we have to stop doing. We have to stop calling everything racist and stop trying to rally the black troops over every single thing. Maybe a black person was doing something they weren't supposed to do, and if they get negative consequences from that, we shouldn't call in the troops of the black community to back them up in their negativity. Because again, the main part of moving forward is not only calling out white supremacy, but it's also being accountable for toxic black behavior. So again, if A$AP Rocky was fighting and got arrested, how is that a black issue? I'm not quite sure. But again, black people are being asked to come around and sign petitions for him. But I don't think that we should throw A$AP Rocky completely away. I do think that this is a time to educate him and let him feel the consequences of his actions, and let him understand why we're distancing ourselves from him like he did from us. But I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, because again, we already have a very small population and some people can be saved. Other instances of a nigga wake-up call, which were very similar to this, was when Lil Bow Wow came out and said he was mixed, because they asked him about racial injustice, Black Lives Matter. They asked him about racism in America, and he said, well, I'm not too sure. I don't want to speak on that because I'm not even fully black anyway. I'm mixed. Lil Bow Wow got dragged for that. He's still getting dragged for that. If you know anything about Lil Bow Wow, he was actually very popular. And it wasn't until he got a little older that people started losing interest, but they still respected him to an extent. It wasn't until he said, I'm mixed, in an attempt to dissociate himself from black people, that people said, nah, fuck it, you out of here. Lil Wayne did something similar. On an interview when they asked him about racism, Lil Wayne said that because a white cop saved his life one time when he was shot, and because white people sing his lyrics at concerts, he doesn't know racism.
My life was saved by a white man. I don't know what racism is. And I'm sorry if people can't understand, but I understand why they don't understand. It's because they don't come from the bottom of a stage and look at 20 to 30,000 people. They don't get that opportunity, and I'm blessed to have that opportunity. So with that said, I can only be honest about such a thing, and I don't understand. I've never witnessed racism.
Oh no. Black Lives Matter.
My life matters, especially to my
Lil Wayne himself, from New Orleans, Louisiana, who also rapped about political corruption and also rapped about things like that on his song Georgia Bush, when he rapped about the New Orleans levees breaking. He spoke about racism all throughout his career, really, a lot of times. And now when they asked him about it, he said he doesn't know about racism. So again, we have to understand what this nigga wake-up call thing is. What it is regardless of how you dissociate or try to separate or try to infiltrate or try to, you know, basically adhere to the customs of America as a black person, you will be told, whether subliminally or outright, you will be told that you are not the same. You will be told that you are inferior. Whether that's true or not, whether you decide to believe that or not, is up to you. But you have to understand that just because you wear a nice polo shirt, or just because you have a good amount of money in your pocket, or just because you associate with Ted and Sandy and Mandy, does not mean that you are the same, and does not mean that you can operate under the same context. One last story I have before I end this thing, because I didn't want to take too much time, but another quick thing that a lot of us get is this nigga wake-up call is when you have a white friend. This has happened to me a few times. I had a person I was cool with that was white at school, and we were cool, but when he brought me to his house, I immediately felt like a nigger. Immediately. Whether it was from his mom, his cousin, his other friends that were there, the people who didn't know me, but they knew him, they're almost looking at me and looking at him like, why'd you bring this nigga in the house? So we have to understand these very subtle things. Sometimes they're very outward, but most of the time they're very subtle. And it isn't until you get that nigga wake-up call that you say, damn, now I'm in this position, I don't even know what to do. So ASAP Rocky, with that being said, I don't wish nothing bad on you. I hope that you get out as soon as you can. I hope that you get back to living your beautiful life in Beverly Hills with all the models and all the things that you do. But I want you to know that you are a black man in America. I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that you have support from your tribe. I'm a member of your tribe and I support you and I'm willing to help you if you need. So with that being said, people, I need you to please vibrate higher.
An update on this ASAP Rocky case. ASAP Rocky is a situation in Sweden. Sweden's a great country. They're friends of mine, the leadership, and we are going to be calling. We'll be talking to them. We've already started. And many members of the African-American community have called me, friends of mine, and said, could you help? So I personally don't know ASAP Rocky, but I can tell you that he has tremendous support from the African-American community in this country. And when I say African-American, I think I can really say from everybody in this country, because we're all one. I have been called by so many people asking me to help ASAP Rocky. Actually, the one who knew about ASAP Rocky was our First Lady, right? And she was telling me about, can you help ASAP Rocky? Do you want to give a little statement on that? You feel,